Hi, Year 11, and welcome to the first in a mini series I'm going to do on Macbeth, characters and themes in Macbeth, which I'm going to try and get through in 5 minutes. But as I've said from my subtitle, who am I kidding? I'm sure it's going to be a lot longer than that. But I'm going to try, guys. I'm going to really, really try. Make sure that you've got some paper, ideally, or something to make notes on, as there's going to be some things I ask you to do as we're going through. So get yourself comfy and let's continue. So, in a nutshell, and these are designed to be quick videos, guys. So, in a nutshell, Macbeth is our protagonist, our main character, and our eponymous tragic hero. The word eponymous, if you've not heard it before, means essentially the title character. It is his name that gives the play its title, eponymous. Like all tragic heroes, Macbeth begins in a place of power and respect before falling to one of infamy and disrepute. In other words, he becomes famous for being bad. But infamy sounds so much better than that, doesn't it? And again, disrepute, really, he's now becomes very disrespected by the end of the play, and he is known for his violence and all this negativity as a king, as opposed to the more positive traits we would want our rulers to have. If we're going to sum this up with some quotations, in Act 1, Macbeth is viewed by others as brave, worthy, and noble because of his loyalty as a patriot to the king, and the great acts of kind of valour and bravery that he commits in battle. But by Act 5, all of that violence and that much more excessive violence now leads to him being called Black Macbeth, a tyrant, and a hellhound. Very much showing us there those juxtapositions of quotations, showing us that change in his character. So I'm going to do two slides here. This first one is if you were aiming for a kind of nice solid 4 or 5 in your English literature. Hopefully we're all skipping on to the next slide, or might watch this and then continue to the next one anyway, because we should be aiming as high as possible. So Macbeth is brave and a well-respected warrior at the start of the play, as shown by the captain's flattering report on him in Act 1, Scene 2. And if I had all the time in the world, I'd be talking to you about why it's important that it's the captain that is reporting on Macbeth in Act 1, Scene 2. But I don't have all that time, so this is a question for you. You can pause it here. Why is it important that it's the captain who gives the report on Macbeth's bravery in Act 1, Scene 2? However, we know that it's Macbeth's ambition, which proves to be his hamartia, that special word for a fatal flaw, as he takes the witch's prophecies literally when he meets them in Act 1, Scene 3, and he gives in to the temptation to be king. Some of us would argue that that is his greatest problem as a character, is his naivety and belief in the witch's prophecies. Others might argue that it's his marriage to Lady Macbeth. So his marriage to Lady Macbeth at the start of the play seems to be a real source of strength and comfort to him. He calls her, by very equal, unusually equal terms, the time period, like dearest partner of greatness and my dearest love. But ironically, it is their quest for the crown which then pushes them apart and leads to their individual downfalls. Their relationship, when they're together, seems super, super strong. Although we can also argue that it's that relationship and his desire to impress her that leads to him committing the regicide, the murder of Duncan as well. And then finally, Macbeth changes from being a fairly conflicted and doubtful character in Acts 1 and 2. There's so many times when he debates whether or not he should be killing Duncan, and kind of he dips his toe, metaphorically speaking, and then he retreats. And it is, again, it seems to be that those witches' prophecies, and that encouragement and emasculation and manipulation from Lady Macbeth that makes him go ahead with the murders. But ultimately, this changes him to a much more bloodthirsty and merciless character. At 3 Scene 5, he murders his best friend. He uses murderers to murder his best friend. He gives orders to murder an entire family, including innocent women and children. And we can see that violence and bloodlust entirely takes him over. Now, what would be a great thing for you to do here would be to try and find some quotations or some specific evidence, ideally from memory, but using your copies of the text if not, for each of those points that I have just made. That would be a really good activity to do now. And then if we're looking for our aiming for the stars, if we want to take it one step further, we're not happy just getting that pass grade, and we are really pushing ourselves to be the best, to do the best, and to be right up there when we're contending and competing with others, then this is a slide for you. So Shakespeare's use of the tragic genre is integral in foreshadowing the downfall of its noble, eponymous protagonist. Macbeth is tempted by his own ambition and pride, and despite all those kind of chivalrous, positive qualities at the start, we can see that it's him giving into temptation and following his deepest, darkest impulses that leads to his downfall. Macbeth is a tragic hero by the very definition due to his hubris, so that excessive pride, and his harsher, his fatal flaw. He's corrupted by his own ambitious nature. Initially, he's viewed by the audience as an honourable and virtuous war hero, so you can see that I'm really trying to kind of dig in with these precise adjectives. But as he transforms throughout the play, he turns much more Machiavellian, so much more kind of evil and duplicitous, and is later referred to as a tyrant, which is a really, really telling. I'm going for noun or adjective here. I presume noun because it's the thing that he is, a tyrant. It's a much more telling noun to describe his political reign. And it shows that he's a shadow of his former self. By the end of the play, his death brings the audience catharsis, that sense of kind of release and a relief and release of emotions, as his cruel destruction of Scotland is healed by Malcolm, who is the true heir to Duncan. Macbeth's rule on multiple occasions is likened to an insidious disease. We have phrases like kind of to purge. We see Malcolm as the medicine. So there's some really nice quotations, metaphors that are used throughout the play. Macbeth being a disease that is striking down Scotland. Now, something that is really going to help you get those kind of higher marks as well is thinking about the intent behind the writing. So do remember, Shakespeare is writing this literally after the events. We don't know exactly when he started writing, but I think it is very widely believed that he was influenced by the gunpowder plot of 1605, where Guy Fawkes and his group of Catholic conspirators attempted to blow up the Houses of Parliament with King James inside. So remember, James I was Shakespeare's patron, and therefore it is no surprise, because he's the man paying Shakespeare's wages, that Shakespeare stages a play about the tragic and chaotic consequences of regicide, not even a year after the events. This is clearly a kind of flattery piece of King James I, and it is designed to warn society of the dangers of going against the divine right of kings. And Shakespeare's tragedy isn't subtle in its depiction of the chaos that could be unleashed if you attempt to break the great chain of being. The regicide actions of the mad butcher and the fiend-like queen, so Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, at the end of the play, ensure that this kind of hell on earth that is unleashed in Scotland. And Macbeth's character, whilst based on a real historical figure from the Hollinshead Chronicles, becomes kind of hand in hand with manipulation, hubris, and bloodlust, that excessive violence, providing a stark warning to us all, both kind of Jacobean audiences and modern audiences, about the consequences of unchecked ambition. So well over 5 minutes, not hugely, but over 5 minutes. But I feel like it's as fast as I could go. As with our other slide, it would be a really good idea to find yourself some quotations to back up the points that I've made here. I have given you some one-word quotations, but can you find me more detailed examples? And if you want any further revision on Macbeth's character, I'd recommend Mr. Bruff's little 9-minute spotlight. I'd recommend BBC Bite Size, the PMT character profiles, and Spark Notes as well. There's some fantastic resources out there, guys, so please do make sure that you're using those. As always, if you found this helpful, please do like and subscribe, and let me know if you have any requests for the next video. Thanks, everybody.